Welcome to the February 2022 edition of Hunt Camp Mail, where I'll attempt to answer your questions and respond to comments from my email. Before we get to the mail, I'd like my viewers to know that I'm trying to work through some problems with YouTube right now, where they're flagging a lot of your comments for review for unknown reasons. When YouTube flags your comments, they basically sit in limbo until I go through the held comment section and approve them for you. And for some reason, YouTube flagged just dozens and dozens of your comments this month. And I'd say that 90% of them were respectful and perfectly appropriate to the content. But I finally talked to a live person from YouTube. You don't realize how hard that is to do, but I actually talked to a live person over there, and they indicated that the system will do that with YouTube viewers that have been reported by other channels. So either a lot of my viewers are stirring up problems on other channels, or YouTube is having some legitimate issues right now. But just be patient with me, and I'll try to go through my held comments more frequently, and hopefully it's just a glitch in their system and they get it fixed real soon. I also completed my first episode of Made in America. Bad Bags doesn't know I made that video, but they have to be wondering why the hell they completely sold out of their entire inventory in 3 days. I mean, that's a success in my opinion, and made a video like that worth doing. We need to support American companies whenever possible. Also, my video on Ackley Improved cartridges was pretty well received, even by the experienced reloaders and wildcatters out there among you. It did seem to confuse the guys that buy commercial 280 AI rifles and factory 280 AI ammunition, but I kind of expected that because the 280 AI is no longer really a Wildcat or an AI cartridge in the classic sense anymore. It's kind of a starter cartridge for a lot of inexperienced shooters these days, and they're still trying to figure it out, so I hope that video helped them out a little bit. Also, Mick from Australia seemed to have gained a underground following on my channel for some reason. Some of you even suggested that I give out a Bloke of the Year award in honor of Mick. We'll see. As is the norm right now, this is going to be a really long video, so grab your favorite adult beverage and settle in. I did receive some very interesting questions this month, so I think you're going to like this Hunt Camp mail. So let's get to February's mail. Our first question is from John in California. John wrote, I've been watching your channel for a couple of months and really enjoying it. I'm getting back into upland hunting, and I have a Remington 1100 and 870 with fixed choke barrels. Would steel shot be safe to shoot through them, or what would you suggest? Well, John, the Remington stopped making fixed choke 1100s and 870s sometime in the mid-1980s, so your guns are probably 40 years old, or much older than that. When I worked on other people's guns for profit, I saw a lot of bulged barrels on fixed choke guns, especially when in the 90s when people started using it for waterfowl, not by choice. Steel shot doesn't necessarily wear the barrels down like people think, especially with modern wad technology. What actually happens is steel shot destroys the end of the barrel because they were designed for lead shot. And lead shot deforms as it travels through the barrel, especially that choke constriction. And steel shot doesn't deform when it's choked. So it's really hard on the end of those barrels. So I personally wouldn't shoot steel shot in those guns, but bismuth should be fine. That's if you could find or afford bismuth. If you plan on taking advantage of the great dove hunting in the state, I would actually go out and just get a modern shotgun and take advantage of the cheaper steel shot. You go through lots of shells while you're dove hunting, and I wouldn't go through the expensive bismuth for that. And our next question is from Roger from Sanderville, Georgia. Roger asked, the reason I'm getting into hand loading is for the 416 Remington Magnum I just bought thanks to you. By the way, my wife is not happy with you. I get that a lot. Probably the bane of a lot of wives out there. I want to develop a mild load using Barnes 350 grain flat base bullet for elk hunting this year. What do you suggest? Well, I personally suggest that you don't use your 416 Remington Magnum for elk. It won't kill elk any better than a 300 Win Mag will, and recoil on that 416 is just too much to shoot from the prone position. And ballistics aren't the greatest for longer shots. And that mild load that you want to load up is going to make that even worse. And it's 5 times more expensive to load for. Hunting elk with a 416 Rem Mag is pretty much all cons and no pros. I don't recommend it. That being said, I wouldn't hesitate to take a 416 on a one-gun safari in Africa where dangerous game is the big focus, but you might shoot a lot of plains game too. Used in that context, a fast, flat-shooting 350 grain TSX or A-frame would be a great all-around hunting bullet, but leave the 416 at home for the elk hunts though. Like I said in previous videos, 99% of the people out there who buy big bore rifles either never use them or will never have a real need or use for them. So I'd hold off on it. Our next question is from Con from Corona, California. Con wrote, I live in Corona, California, and I'm looking for some upland hunting partners. Please advise. It seems like I answered a similar question to this in a previous hunt camp mail, maybe sometime last year. But if you're on social media like Facebook, you could join one of the local hunting groups and try to hook up with other hunters. But honestly, most people don't really trust meeting up with complete strangers and hunting with them. With so many psychos and mentally unstable people in California, this is a pretty risky proposition anyways. And to be honest with you, your chances are pretty slim of hooking up with a hunting partner online these days, unless they want to be special friends with you. But your best bet is to dive right into the hunting hobby yourself. And then when you get some experience and become successful at hunting, try to get your friends and family members involved too. That way, you'll have a group of hunters who trust each other. And sharing the hunting experience with friends and family is much more rewarding than hunting with a complete stranger. And another option for you, Con, is joining a hunting organization or a hunting club. Clubs and organizations usually have a few group hunts every year, and it's a good place to connect with other hunters. But don't outright discount just going out by yourself and having a solo hunting experience. It's good to get out alone sometimes, clear your mind, and enjoy nature without all the distractions. I'd rather hunt alone than not at all. And our next question is from Pastor Daniel from Louisiana. Pastor Daniel wrote, I found you by checking out your book recommendations. I just ordered The Hunting Rifle by Jack O'Connor and One Man, One Rifle, One Land by Jones. They will be in this Saturday. I just got a new 7mm 08 in a Winchester Model 70 featherweight. Really enjoyed your video on it. Sadly, I tried multiple rounds and could not get a good load to group. I reload. I tried Sierra, Nosler, Spear, and Hornady. Long story short, I sent it back to Winchester and I'm waiting to hear from them. Well, I hope you really enjoy those books, Pastor Daniel. And I think Jones's book will really connect with you and probably surprise you. It's a great book. On the new rifle, I suppose you could have got a lemon rifle with a poor bedding job or something like that. It's rare, but it's not unheard of. Also, keep in mind that the sporters almost always outshoot those featherweights. And that's why I always recommend the sporters and currently don't own any featherweight rifles. What I usually find, Daniel, is that with a good reloading process, I can get probably 90% of the rifles out there to shoot sub MOA. Usually when a reloader complains to me about loads, it's because they lack a process for finding good loads. I'm not aware of your process, so I'm not going to jump to that conclusion with you, but I think it's a point to bring up to you. Making random loads and hoping for the best doesn't really work in the reloading world. You need a process to discover powder nodes and seating depth nodes, and if you don't have that, you're going to have a really tough time shooting accurate hand loads in that rifle. And our next question is from William from Twin Falls, Idaho. William wrote, I bought a Wheeler scope leveling kit last week, and I noticed that when the scope and rifle were level, my reticle was off. This isn't a cheap scope, it's a Z3, so the scope reticle should be level. I think those cheap plastic levels are not repeatable. What do you use to level your scopes with your rifle? I feel your pain, William. I spent countless dollars over the last 30 years trying everything. I have the expensive Wheeler kits, the cheap Wheeler kits, the little platform levels, plumb lines. I've tried tape on the wall. You name it, I've tried it. What I've learned over the years is two things, basically. Those cheap plastic levels really don't work as well as you think they do. And number two, leveling a scope off the scope caps is not a very accurate way of getting a perfectly level reticle. So change your thought process from scope leveling to reticle leveling. It's really the reticle that you're trying to level to the rifle, not the scope. So this is what I've settled on as the fastest, easiest, and most accurate way to level a reticle to a rifle. I hook up this $50 Bosch laser level up to something, I clip it onto something, and I point it at a wall in a dimly lit area. It makes a perfectly level cross on the wall, and then I could then set my gun up in a vise and attach this CTK Precision all-purpose gun level. This CTK Precision level doesn't use magnets, so you can level off of aluminum bases or rails or non-magnetic receivers. I find that it actually sits flatter and holds firmer than a magnet does anyway. And the level on this is very accurate and high quality, unlike those Wheeler engineering levels. And the best part, these CTK levels are only $25, and they're made right here in the United States. So what I do is I point this laser level at the wall. I then hook up my gun in a gun vise pointed at the same wall, and I then level the gun with this CTK level, and then I level my scope reticle with the lasered cross on the wall. It's that simple, and it's very precise. I'll put links to these products in the description below. And our next question is from Iya from Russia. Iya wrote, where do you stand on snap caps and dry firing for practice? Could you recommend a particular brand of snap caps, if any? Well, yeah, get some of these out here for you. Looks like it's not going to sit on that very well. But I'm a huge proponent of using snap caps, both for training and for function checks in firearms. Except for rim fires. I don't really use them on rim fires, but I don't like using homemade dummy rounds if I don't have to, especially if they look like real rounds, because they greatly increase the likelihood of an accident. It's good to buy commercial snap caps that don't look like real ammunition whenever you can, but for obscure cartridges, they really don't make commercial snap caps like these, so we're forced to make our own dummy rounds. Just make sure that you mark them up really good so that they can't be confused with real ammunition. Either coat the whole cartridge with a Sharpie like this, Or do like I do, and I dye my dummy rounds with Dicam machine fluid. And this is a 35 Wayland dummy round dyed red with Dicam. And they're great for dummy rounds. And our next question is from Ross in Michigan. Ross basically wrote a whole bunch of questions about reloading, but I'll pick the first one and answer that. Ross wrote, I have a question about your printouts when you are developing loads. Are the printouts you use the product of the lab radar equipment you have, or are those the result of some ballistic program you use? Please let me know how all of that works. Well, Ross, these printouts are just simple graphs that I make on Microsoft Excel and Word by just manually inputting data. The graphs are very important to me for identifying and comparing powder and accuracy nodes. Now remember, the process is more important than the powder or the bullet you use, but also consider that when you input data in for your graphs, data is a garbage in, garbage out scenario. So if you aren't using a good chronograph or you aren't maximizing bench rest accuracy when you're finding your accuracy nodes, you aren't putting good data into your graphs. So keep that in mind as well. And our next question is from Nasir. Nasir wrote, Dear Desert Dog, good day. I wonder if you could be kind enough to clarify why it is that most monolithic bullets are of lower BC than lead core. Well, that's basically because lead is much denser than copper. Basically, you get a shorter for diameter bullet with lead for any given bullet weight. And designs being equal, the shorter bullet has less drag for the weight. I've also heard it said by ballisticians that the driving bands on copper bullets increase drag and lower ballistic coefficient as well. But manufacturers are really pushing the limits of monobullet designs these days. So the BCs of bullets like the LRX are perfectly adequate. But that being said, copper bullets are designed to be ethical hunting specific bullets. So BCs don't really matter in that context. And our next question is from Thomas from Denver, Colorado. Thomas wrote, I follow your channel but never post. I'm addicted to reading the comment sections of videos, and I noticed that a lot of your viewers comment without watching your videos, to which you often call them out and tell them to watch my video. You don't seem to have too many douchebags in your comments, but other channels are full of them. Do you filter them out? I'm thinking of starting my own channel for wild game cooking and don't want the drama that some YouTube channels are known for. Is there software that you use, or is there settings in YouTube's system? I appreciate the advice. And I assume that you're talking about moderating the comments. You know, if that's the case, as a creator, you don't have to use third-party software to manage your channel. YouTube software basically does all the filtering. So some of it you can control yourself and some of it you can't. And often this YouTube system has glitches, like I mentioned in the prologue of this video. But basically, I can set comments to need my approval before posting, or I could set comments to be held if they contain certain language. You know, YouTube will also automatically filter out any comments that it deems inappropriate, hateful, or threatening. And if viewers start causing you problems, you can also mute certain viewers from commenting or completely hide users from your channel altogether if they can't behave. So there's lots of options for moderating, and YouTube does a lot of it automatically without your input. When you run your YouTube channel, it is best to really moderate the comment section because it could get you into trouble. Remember, I had my previous channel suspended several times, demonetized, and finally deleted. So don't let your channel become just a free-for-all for trolls and, people with anger issues. It's a sure way to get demonetized and eventually removed. So don't make that mistake. It won't take you long to recognize the types of commentators that you'll be dealing with and how to deal with them. The subject matter of your videos will have a great deal to do with the type of people that your channel attracts. I basically categorize my viewers into 5 categories. First, we have what I call good citizens. Good citizens make well thought out comments, are respectful to others in general, they're constructive, and they're genuinely interested in the topic of your video. As you noticed, most of my subscribers fall into this category of being good citizens. I just have a fantastic subscriber base right now. The second type of commenter that I see are what I call skimmers. Skimmers are people who comment about videos without even watching them, and you'll get a lot of that. They love to give you matter-of-fact information that was already covered in the video that they didn't watch. They also ask questions that were already answered in the video that they didn't watch. As annoying as skimmers are, they're normally harmless, so I usually set them straight and move on. You also get, in the same vein, kind of just the opposite of skimmers, what I call ramblers. And they're people that just will post a comment and write a freaking book. I mean, you think I'm joking? I'm not. I mean, even a couple of days ago, there was a guy in my powders for 30-06 video, and he literally posted 200 lines of text on a comment in that video. And I had a guy last year that posted like 146 lines of text on a comment in the video. So when you do that, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to go through that whole thing. So don't do that. That's bad internet etiquette. Well, the third type of commenters are the bots. Sometimes these are unauthorized advertisers or other users trying to use my channel for clicks, and I don't really like that. And they're not supposed to do that anyways. So I report them to YouTube as spam, and I hide them from my channel. You also get bots that are just people who kind of suffer from internet etiquette retardation. These people will just insistently post the same thing in every video you post. I had guys that would just over and over post 270 Winchester in the comment section of just about every video I posted. I have a guy right now where it doesn't matter what I post a video about. He'll post up there, review the Mauser M18. Doesn't matter if it's a video about bad bags. It doesn't matter. He'll post that. So, he's a bot in my opinion. I put up with them for a while, but eventually if they continue, I'll go ahead and mute them on my channel. And the fourth type of commenters are what I call HPDs. You guessed it, that stands for histrionic personality disorder. These folks post constantly and obsessively, always trying to stir up drama, and they'll never let a point die. They think that the whole group is with them and sees them as some kind of leader, but in reality, we're all thinking, man, this guy is messed up in the head. HPDs normally spend their days stirring up drama on multiple channels, so most of them are known to creators. But if these HPDs go too far, I'll go ahead and mute them, but still allow them to view my channel. They're generally not bad people. They just have issues. In the last group is the trolls. Internet trolls need no introduction. Some trolls are just genuinely miserable people who use the internet as an outlet for their negativity. Other trolls are just out to disrupt, cause harm, and get your channel shut down. When I recognize a troll, I hide them from my channel immediately. And if you're smart, you'll hide them from your channel too. But I wish you a lot of luck with your new channel, Thomas. And be sure to send me a link when you get it running, because Beck and I just love wild game recipes. So I'm looking forward to your channel. And our next question is from Henry from San Dimas, California. Henry wrote, from an information standpoint, your channel really shines when it comes to information on reloading. Some channels are too focused on bench rest loads, and other channels give sloppy or inaccurate information. You are the only guy who promotes a repeatable system for finding hunting loads, which really took my reloading to the next level. You said, the process is more important than the components, and now I see the truth in that. If you read this on Hunt Camp Mail, please remind your viewers that being consistent pays off. Absolutely, Henry. And as you learn, the process is the key to great loads, not components or other people's load data. When I start load development on a new load, it's like I fired up an old assembly line and went to work. With a little powder and load research, a little reloading time, and a couple of trips to the range, I always get good loads because I follow a process and have a plan. People who just randomly try different loads are like those people who drive around town trying to think of a restaurant to eat at. They waste tons of fuel and aimlessly wander around without a plan. And they end up eating at a place that they really don't like. People with the process will have a method for selecting a restaurant, make reservations, and drive straight there. Having a reloading process is no different than that. So yeah, Henry, it's good that my viewers know that becoming familiar with powder properties, getting a process down for finding velocity nodes, and then fine-tuning seating depth for accuracy. Once you learn to do this, reloading is actually very easy and uncomplicated. Unfortunately, most people just want to copy somebody else's load data. And in my honest opinion, those guys are better off with just sticking with factory ammunition. And our next question is from AJ. I don't know where AJ's from. It's just AJ. AJ wrote, I'm looking for some advice for my 30-06. I have a Savage 116 trophy hunter. I've been loading for this gun for a few years and have very good loads for 150 grain and 165 grain bullets, but I'm looking to stretch its legs more. I have some buddies that shoot long range, and I'd just like to see if I can make the old .6 hang out to 1,000 yards. I'm currently trying to get 205 grain ELD match bullets to work with Stabal, but just not getting the standard deviations I'm used to. I have used Stabal with good results with 150s and 165s. Maybe I'm just asking too much for the 30-06 and 1,000 yards. Any advice you have would be great. Well, AJ, more than likely you're asking too much out of that rifle and that powder. The 30-06 is actually an easy 1,000-yard target cartridge that's won countless 1,000-yard shooting competitions over its lifetime. The cartridge definitely isn't the problem. First of all, that rifle that you're using really isn't going to give you what you want for small groups at 1,000 yards. I just want to give you that little dose of reality. You could probably have the rifle bedded into a better stock and wring a little bit more precision out of it, but don't expect to shoot matches with that rifle. And secondly, concerning your high extreme spreads and standard deviation with your loads, I honestly think that you're not using a great powder for achieving that. Look for a good extruded powder with the appropriate burn rate and case fill for your load. Then take the time to find a powder node with a good powder. Bad extreme spreads are usually caused by powder or inconsistent neck tension, so that's where you want to check for that. You might also try a Magnum primer with that ball powder. I usually find that Magnum primers often react well with ball powders and standard cartridges, so you might try that. In my opinion, H4350 or H4831 shortcut should give you great accuracy with those heavy bullets, but be mindful that when you get over 200 grains with those really long match bullets, you also need to be sure that your 1 in 10 twist barrel is still stabilizing those. Our next question is from Vincent from New Zealand. Vincent wrote, how likely is it for a Remington 700 bolt handle to disengage? I have a mountain rifle and worry about carrying it in the New Zealand mountains. Well, I've seen it happen enough to know that it's a real thing. But if you're hunting in open country, on open trails, or under really tall trees, this really shouldn't be an issue. I know this isn't a Remington 700, but the bolt on a 700 shouldn't just lift up on its own. You know, it has to physically get snagged on something to lift up. If you're hunting in really thick brush, or if you have to crawl a lot, or if you're wearing a lot of gear on you, the bolt can be lifted out of battery. You know, and it happens, and I've seen it happen, but it's not as common as a lot of people think. Honestly, when I'm trudging through really thick brush, I normally have my rifle in my hands, so something like this doesn't happen to me. But that being said, I do love having a 3-position safety or some kind of bolt release to solve that issue. Our next question is from Philip in Texas. Philip wrote, I've hunted over 600 animals on cull hunts with the Barnes TSX and have never had a bullet expand. Virtually every bullet penciled right through the animals and maybe killed 20% of them. Why do you hunt with this bullet?
Bullshit! Bullshit! Bullshit!
And our next question is from CM from Canada. CM wrote, I am considering planning a trip to Africa. I'd like to combine a hunt, probably buffalo and warthog, with a photo safari. Perhaps a week of hunting and a week of photo safari. This doesn't seem easy to plan. My wife isn't a hunter or even a meat eater, but just the same, she may tag along. Not sure if this is a good thing or not. Will she be bored while I'm out hunting? I also don't want a farmed animal. It must be open ground and fair chase. Will the meat really be used to feed the local people? This is a deal breaker for me. I want the experience of tracking and hunting in the bush, seeing the wildlife and experiencing the camp at the end of the day. Can you suggest some areas or an approach to plan something? It's a very common question I get. I'd go back to my Hunt Camp Mail episode from August of 2020. And at about the 20-minute mark in that video, I tackle a question about going on trips with a non-hunting wife. And this might just apply to you. But let's start with the wife's needs first. She wants vegan food or non-game animal food, I'm taking it. And she wants to be occupied with activities while you're out hunting so she doesn't get bored. This sounds like South Africa to me, where your food is very diversified and comes from a local grocery store where you get to pick it out. And there's lots of shopping, activities, and maybe even a spa for her enjoyment while you're out hunting. You also have fantastic organized safaris in South Africa, complete with huge gift shops and 5-star restaurants. South Africa to me, though, is no different than hunting on the high fence game ranches in Texas. Actually, they're extremely similar in scenery, lodging, and hunting, in my opinion. Some game ranches have just enormous areas to hunt in, so you can get that fair chase experience, but you'll never get that free range experience like you will in places like Zimbabwe and Tanzania and Mozambique. And selecting an outfitter can be kind of daunting because African game farms run the gambit from small, high fenced areas where you'll be hunting pen raised animals over table scraps and water troughs, which is basically what most of the archery hunters do in Africa. It varies from that to just absolutely huge properties that you actually have to hunt hard on foot. Some of the outfitters that claim to have these huge hunting areas actually divide the areas into a bunch of smaller high fenced enclosures with certain animal species in them. So you have to do your research, make your expectations known, and, try to communicate with past guests, ask for references. As far as I know, most South African game meat goes to the farm staff or is sold on the market. Because those animals are the farmer's property. You're not hunting on public land and you're not really hunting public land wild animals there. So all the animals on those game farms are the farmer's property. And very seldom does your meat get donated to some local village in South Africa like you're thinking. I mean, honestly, CM, there isn't really any traditional villages in most South African hunting areas in the way that you're probably envisioning them. South Africans live in houses, watch cable television, wear shoes, and have their faces stuffed in their cell phones all day. So get that wild, untamed, National Geographic Africa image out of your head if you plan on hunting in South Africa, because it's not like that. But some South African outfits do donate meat to the poor, but you have to do your own research on that. It's basically like hunting on private property anywhere. It's fun, comfortable, family-friendly, cheap, safe, and can cater to a lot of special needs. But you need to be realistic about the experience that you're going to get in South Africa. If you want to hunt in a truly wild, free-range area where, the meat goes straight to some local village and you get that real unfiltered hunt camp experience, your wife might not be happy with that. You'll be sacrificing a lot of comfort and safety to experience the real Africa. The real Africa is mosquitoes, spiders, and tsetse flies. The real Africa is being content with eating whatever you're served. The real Africa has no hospitals, cell reception, hot showers, grocery stores, or spas. And lastly, the real Africa is kind of expensive, so most Westerners really don't see a value in it. So you can compromise on your hunt and make your wife happy, or go hunting alone and experience your dream hunt, but have a pissed off wife at home. That's your decision to make. I'm just glad that it's not a compromise that I have to make with my wife, because my wife loves hunting, being out in the wild, eating wild game, and experiencing new adventures. So I'm lucky in that regard. And our next question is from John. John asks, what are your thoughts on the Hornady GMX, and how do you think it compares to other mono metal bullets? Well, John, I think the GMX is a decent bullet. I have lots of experience loading and using the GMX in various calibers for various cartridges. And, I have mixed thoughts on it. First of all, it's usually harder to find accurate loads than the Barnes TTSX is. Often, the TTSX will shoot better than lead bullets, but the GMX seldom does. But the GMX is still easier to load for than the E-tip. The E-tip is sometimes almost impossible to load for. I only have a few barrels that even like E-tips. And secondly, the GMX seems a little bit less reliable with higher velocity rounds like my 223 and my 25-06. You shoot it into water jugs or gel a bunch of times, and you just never really know if you're going to get that perfect pedal expansion and perfectly straight penetration, or if it's going to shed its petals and go all over the place. So there's that issue with it too. But when I need to use a mono metal bullet but my barrel doesn't like the Barnes bullets, I'll use a GMX. But if the TTSXs or the LRXs shoot good in a barrel, I will always take the Barnes over the GMX. But if I can only use GMXs, I wouldn't feel like I was at a disadvantage at all. I mean, they work. I just like the TTSX better. Our next question is from Niels from Canada. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Neels. Niels. Niels wrote, I watched your video regarding the 338 Winchester Magnum. I could not help but notice that you achieved a muzzle velocity of 2,600 feet per second with a 250 grain Nosler AccuBond with the 9.3 by 62. Ideally, I would be using a partition or AccuBond bullet of 250 grains in my 9.3, but I had difficulty finding those in Canada, and consequently, I switched to GMX bullets in 250 grain, and I found them effective. I'd like to be able to reload the 250 grain 9.3 bullets to 2,600 feet per second. I used the Nosler manual that indicates a muzzle velocity of 2,502 feet per second using 54 grains of IMR 4895 powder. With my rifle, using that data, I was surprised, however, to notice that I achieve a muzzle velocity of about 2,200 feet per second only. This is measured over an old chronograph. Can you suggest a load for my rifle using 250 grain GMX bullets that enabled me to achieve 2,600 feet per second? Well, Niels, every barrel and chamber is different and will give you different velocities. And it'll react differently to brass, powder, and primers. I don't really give out load data because of that. And you shouldn't be using other people's load data anyway. You need to work up your own loads in your own gun. But I don't think it's really hard to get 2,600 feet per second in the 9.3 with the 250 grainers. I could do it pretty easily with the AccuBonds and Varget. But I am seeing a trend starting to develop in my mailbox where people really want plug and play loads, but nobody really wants to put in the work to develop a load. You have to follow a process to get the loads you want. You just can't get them from other people. Your barrel and your batch of powder is unique to you. I think even though I said I wouldn't do it, I think I'm going to do one more reloading video. I won't be loading any ammo in it, and I won't talk about any cartridges in it. It'll just be a video that strictly shows my reloading process. Basically, how to pick a powder, how to find a powder node, and how to get an accuracy node, because reloading really is that simple. Our next letter is from Gregory in Canada. Cool, I get 2 Canadian letters in a row. Gregory wrote, I live in Saskatchewan and hunt all big game, including moose, black bear, and elk with my Tika in 308. I hand load it with 168 grain TTSXs, which have been excellent so far. But now I'm moving to Alberta and hunting in Grizzly country. Do you think that I better get a bigger caliber for my safety on top of carrying bear spray, or should I just keep what I have and save money? Well, Gregory, just keep what you have. Carry the bear spray, be smart in the woods, and save the money. Our next question is from David P. David P. wrote, I wanted to ask about turkey hunting. Have you considered making a video about it? Kind of like a guide to turkey hunting. I'm a new hunter and can honestly say I watched your guide to quail and dove hunting videos at least 3 times each. They're very helpful to new hunters. If you could do one more for turkey hunting, that would be awesome. Well, I didn't plan on making a turkey video because I'm really no turkey hunting expert. I know a lot of guys are that's the only thing they do. And that's the only thing they look forward to is turkey hunting. But I do love to hunt them and I enjoy eating them. So at the very least, maybe I'll take my viewers along with me for some of my turkey hunts this spring. I mean, we'll see. It's really hard to film a turkey hunt, if you know what I mean. And our next question is from Toby in Tampa, California. Toby in Tampa, Florida, not California. Toby wrote, desert dog or dog of the desert. I like that. I bought a new Savage in 30-06 that I plan to reload for. This will be my hog rifle. I fired a couple boxes of Remington factory ammo through it to zero the scope and break in the barrel, and it shot great. I bought an entire Hornady reloading set, Hornady 30-06 dies, digital calipers, Nosler brass, 180 grain Barnes bullets, and I scored some H4350 and CCI primers on Gunbroker. I sized, chamfered, and primed the brass and loaded the bullets to Hornady manual cartridge overall length. I didn't crimp, but neck tension looks good. I loaded about 20 cases with different powder charges to find a powder node like you do, but when I went to the range, some of them didn't fire. It looks like light primer strikes. So, to test things out, I went out and bought a box of Federal 30-06 ammo, and those ran great and had deep primer dimples. Are the primers I bought so hard that they won't ignite, or are they defective? Trying hard to figure this out, but need some ideas. Okay, Toby, you're doing a great job by creating a reloading process. Then when you're noticing problems, you went back and you inspected the primers, and you even bought another box of factory ammo to verify things. You actually took all of the guesswork out of it for me. I think it's one of three issues. First of all, the brass could be way out of specs and not head spacing correctly, but I really doubt that. I've been using Nosler 30-06 brass for well over 10 years and literally thousands and thousands of cases, and I've never experienced one batch of bad brass, so this is pretty unlikely in my opinion. I suppose you did say you bought your CCI primers on Gunbroker. There's a chance maybe they could be something different or really old, but I'm not really going to go there. That opens up a whole nother can of worms, and there's easier things to test first. And secondly, you might not be seating your primers all the way to where they bottom out on the bottom of the primer pocket. And your firing pin is moving the primers forward when it hits, and this would cause light primer strikes and, cause the problem that you're explaining. It could happen. It's like I said, once again, unlikely if you're seating them really good, but it could happen. But to me, the likely reason is that you accidentally bumped back the shoulder too far in your virgin brass when you were prepping it. This is a common rookie mistake that I see, and I've seen it more times than I can count. The problem is that the instructions for the die you're using probably told you to screw it down until it touches the base of the shell holder and use it like that. Well, I'm just going to tell you that's horrible advice. The problem is that shell holder deck heights vary by a lot, sometimes by a great deal, and this could actually cause too much shoulder bump, or the spec of the die could be a little bit off, causing too much shoulder bump. So actually, it's best with that virgin Nosler brass not to bump the shoulder back at all. It's already a little bit short because it's virgin brass, and making it shorter could cause head space and result in light primer strikes. When I get my virgin Nosler brass like you have, I just run it through an expander mandrel and don't size it at all. And I recommend that you try that too. The correct way to set up a full-length sizing die is to measure off the datum line on your fired brass from your rifle and bump that back a couple of thousandths. A lot of people go 2 to 4 thousandths back. This means that you don't just arbitrarily screw the sizing down until it touches the shell holder. You have to properly measure a fired case and adjust your die accordingly compared to that. Please invest in one of these comparator kits for headspace and put these on your digital calipers. Pretty much these are mandatory for setting up your dies properly and reloading. So load up a few rounds of your nozzler brass without sizing. If they fire just fine, you know that you were bumping back the shoulder too far and creating headspace. It's easy to check for, and that's where I'd start. And our next question is from Jim from Los Angeles. Jim wrote, I went hunting with 2 guides this year for deer. One wore blue jeans, cowboy boots, and a t-shirt, and one wore old cargo pants and a green hoodie. I got 2 very nice bucks in 2 different zones with these guides. I felt overdressed in my new camo outfit that I bought at Bass Pro Shops. Actually, I felt like a moron. I noticed that you don't wear camo outfits either, except for maybe a camo hat. You hunt all over the world, so do you think camo clothes are useful at all? Once again, I think I answered a question similar to this in a past hunt camp mail, but to tell you the truth, camo is actually not useful most of the time. The few instances where it is useful is for waterfowl hunting, turkey hunting, and for archery hunting that doesn't include being in a blind. Honestly, to me, turkey hunting is the only time that I really find camo helpful. Because those turkeys just have crazy eyesight. So what you learned was that working the wind, being quiet, and knowing animal behavior are what really matters in hunting. You can usually stalk close to deer wearing whatever the hell you want if you know how to do it right. It's funny when I see the homers in the Anchorage airport every year decked out in their fancy, clean, brand new Kuiu outfits. It makes me imagine that they're picking up their Gunworks rifles from the baggage claim, fresh off an episode of Best of the West. Then you have the brave American bow hunters in the OR Tambo Airport in South Africa, just decked head to toe in the latest Cryptek gear, ready to sit in a concrete box while taking shots at pen-raised kudu, eating supermarket vegetables off the ground in front of them. So that's probably where camo gets a bad rap. You need to also consider that camouflage is illegal in a lot of countries. You need to turn your American brain off for a second and realize that in many places on this planet, camo represents revolution, sedition, and rebellion. There's places on this earth where walking around in camo puts a target on your back, and can be disrespectful to the local culture. Even though camo is illegal in a lot of African countries, I still see Westerners wearing it anyways. Also consider that in much of Africa, poachers wear camo. Not to hide from animals, but to hide from the rangers. 2 Italian hunters were killed in Zimbabwe several years ago by park rangers because they were wearing camo, and the rangers in the area accidentally thought they were poachers and shot them on sight. So, why would you wear camo in an area where poachers are shot on sight? Why the hell would you wear camo in a place where it's illegal to do so? I don't know. People do it anyway. But if I'm not hunting ducks or turkey, I just don't really wear camo. As you found out on your 2 guided deer hunts, you don't need camo for that. And our next question is from Thomas in Belgium. Thomas wrote, I have the opportunity to go stalking in Portugal this and next year. Species are red stag, fallow deer, wild boar, and hopefully we also see some mouflon. A local PH said, bring enough gun, as it's important to anchor the animals on the spot when we shoot them. The terrain is brutal, dense brush and boulders everywhere on hills and valleys, and a wounded animal could run onto private property where we can't chase it. Is my 30-06 and a 20-inch barrel fit for the job, given shots will be between 50 meters, and 250 meters. I would also use 180 grain Barnes bullets. If not, I was thinking about a new rifle in 9.3 by 62 with 230 grain or more bullets. What's your opinion? Well, Thomas, honestly, a 30-06 should be plenty for those animals at those ranges. I've killed all of those species with a 30-06 and had no problems. But if you really want to get a 9.3, just go for it. I won't talk you out of it. That classic European cartridge is sure to put a smile on your PH's face. And our next question is from Dave. I swear, half the hunting population of North America has to be named Dave. I mean, we should do a study on this. I'm thinking about maybe at least 20% of all of my subscribers are named Dave, and they never tell me where they're from. But Dave wrote, quick question. What blade did you use to cut your foam in the double Pelican case? I've always had the foam pullouts with my case. Need a double, so the V800 it is. Well, I do what everybody has done for as long as I can remember. Get a really sharp knife and just cut the shapes out after you trace them. The Havalon or Outdoor Edge knives cut through that foam probably better than anything I've ever used. Just keep a sharp new blade on it. Also, to tell you the truth, I'm really not a fan of those newer Pelican Volt series of cases. Pelican really went cheap with those cases. My buddy got a V800, and that thing just has the flimsiest, floppiest, poorest construction I think I've ever seen on a Pelican product. I mean, that lid, you lift it up and it just torques and flops around, and you can even put pressure on the top of it and smash it down really far. In my opinion, they shouldn't have put the Pelican name on those Volt series of cases. And to tell you the truth, I've been through just about every rifle case for air travel in my lifetime. From Pelican cases to SKB to aluminum cases, and I even used the Tough Pack for a few years. What I'll tell you with certainty is that there's nothing better than the old standby Pelican 1750 case. I've spent years and thousands of dollars looking for something better, and I always end up going back to that Pelican 1750. And our next question is from Sam in Australia. Sam wrote, I loved mixed letter last month, mate. Luckily, most Aussies know the difference between long-range target shooting and hunting living animals. But unluckily, it looks like our soon-to-be communist government might take those rights away from us. Thanks for the videos, Dog of the Desert, and best wishes to you and your family. Well, I agree with you, Sam. Aussie hunters are just awesome people. And Aussie hunters generally have really good ethics when it comes to hunting. But as you alluded to in your letter, Sam, man, your country's in the shit pile right now, mate. I have to say this, brother, but when I saw the people of Australia and Canada let their governments take their guns away, us Americans knew that this would be the outcome. You allowed your governments to lose their fear of the citizens, so now they blatantly do whatever the hell they want, even if that means clubbing defenseless old ladies over the head or arresting you for liking a truck driver on Facebook. Giving up your guns is how authoritarian governments, that's how they're made. And, the proof is right there for the world to see. Never let them take your guns. And our next letter is from Tom. Tom wrote, Hey, Desert Dog, can you put out a video on gunpowder storage? There's a lot of different opinions out there. I'd like to hear yours. I am grateful for all the knowledge you're putting out there. Well, it's actually not complicated, and in my opinion, it certainly doesn't warrant a video. Powder companies tell you to store it in a cool, dry place away from heat and ignition sources. And in addition to this, keep your powder canisters out of direct sunlight and away from things like solvents or fuel or highly combustible materials. And always keep your powder in the original powder containers. This facilitates both safe containment and the ability to track your powder by lot number. Basically, heat and moisture are the worst enemy of powder. So your first priority is to protect it from those two things. And our next question is from Roger from Georgia. Roger wrote, I'm getting into hand loading. I just purchased brass, powder, dyes, primers, and Barnes bullets. Also purchased RCBS Master Reloader Kit. Now wading through all the data and trying to find my starting point. I just rewatched your videos. I plan to start my reloading adventure with the 270, work on the 308, then move towards the 257 Roberts. Really nervous about the 416, which is a good thing. I know from all the safety warnings that we must be very careful with everything. What cautions do you have for the new hand loader? Maybe you could start a video for beginning hand loading. Well, to answer your question, Roger, as I stated earlier in this edition of Hunt Camp Mail, I'm thinking of doing one more reloading video that, focuses strictly on my reloading process. And I'll try to get that video done sometime this spring. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you get notified when that video comes out. And our next question is from William in Kansas. William wrote, after watching your last Hunt Camp Mail video comments about Ruger, it reminds me of how Remington just sold out the whole gun industry to the antis. To hell with Remington. Boycott Remington. Whoa, William. Pump the brakes, my friend. All those headlines you're seeing on this, whether they come from right-wing or left-wing media sources, they're flat-out lies. We need to calm down and think rationally here. As a business owner who's been in litigation for everything from workers' comp issues to revenue recovery to CERCLA law, I can tell you with certainty that it's the insurance company that made that call, not Remington. I've had insurance companies settle when my company was 100% in the right. So insurance companies are basically spineless organizations that base their decisions on a cost-benefit analysis, not on moral victories or doing the right thing. So winning is often more expensive than settling. And, to tell you the truth, this was probably the desired outcome of the plaintiff from the beginning. But here's an official explanation of what transpired.
The decision to settle in the Soto versus Bushmaster case was not made by a member of the firearms industry. The settlement was reached between the plaintiffs and the various insurance carriers that held policies with Remington Outdoor Company, ROC, which effectively no longer exists. As part of the bankruptcy court proceedings, the assets of Remington Outdoor Company were sold at auction in September of 2020. Remington Outdoor Company, which owned the Bushmaster brand, effectively ceased to exist as a going concern. The lawsuit, however, continued against the estate of the Remington Outdoor Company, essentially ROC's insurers and their insurance policies in effect at the time. This settlement also does not alter the fundamental facts of the case.
So as you can see from that letter, the current owner of Remington had absolutely nothing to do with this and isn't paying anybody a dime. This was a decision made by insurance carriers that date back to Remington's Cerberus days, 2 owners ago. So, furthermore, the insurance carrier would have easily won this case if they decided to fight it in court, but it just wasn't worth it to fight it in court. It was cheaper to settle. I'm personally really disappointed in gun owners for joining the media in this lie. People are acting on pure emotional hysteria these days, and we need to be smarter than this. Remington actually did nothing wrong here. And our next question is from Clint in Arizona. Clint wrote, "Thank you for the video on gun tools. I needed that. I hunt a lot of different elevations and temperature extremes in my state of Arizona, so I understand the need to be able to adjust a scope with zero stops in hunting camp. I also take 130 grain loads and 180 grain loads for my 30-06 so I can call in coyotes after an elk hunt, and I need to adjust my scope for that. That Warren tool is exactly what I've been searching for this entire time, and the toolkit you put together at the end just blew my mind. I also have rings that have a half-inch nut attached to the base. I looked all over the internet to find a tiny half-inch wrench like the one you used at the end of that video, but could not find one in that size. Could you please give me a link to that wrench?" Well, that little wrench actually went to an old mini grinder that I used to have, so I really don't have a link to it. But you do have other options for a mini wrench that'll fit in a little kit like I did at the end of that gun tools video. And, let me show you a couple of options. Since you're probably not going to find one of these little wrenches that came with my grinder in half inch anywhere on Amazon or the internet, there are other options. You could buy one of these little 4-inch crescent wrenches, and this is a real crescent wrench from the company Crescent. And these actually handle any nut from half-inch down. Or you can order one of these super thin wrenches off of Amazon. See, that end's half-inch. You can order one of these super thin wrenches off of Amazon for a few dollars and trim it down for your kit. And let me show you how to do that. And there you go. Now you have a little half-inch wrench that's the same length as this, but about 20 times stronger than that. And it's actually shorter than this little crescent, but way thinner profile and probably stronger than this crescent too. So I just made a little half-inch wrench for my kit. And our next question is from Craig from Texas. Craig wrote, "The new 277 Fury has the same ballistics as the 100-year-old 270 Winchester, but operates at 20,000 psi more pressure. What is the purpose of this? Am I taking crazy pills?" You aren't taking crazy pills there, Craig, but be mindful that 3,000 feet per second with 140 grain bullets, that's from a 16-inch barrel. And that's where the need for the increased pressure comes from. And the logic behind the case design, which is basically a 308 case with a shorter neck and less taper. But ballistics-wise, 270 Winchester Short Magnum or 6.8 Western will do the same exact thing without the 23% increase in pressure. But from a hunting standpoint, the only benefit I see to this is for the guys who want to run suppressors. And getting that performance from a 16-inch barrel would be great for their needs, in my opinion. So I'm holding off on judgment right now on the 277 Fury. We just don't know how reliable the case is or how safe it is to load and shoot at this time. I'm assuming that no existing rifles can be rechambered in 277 Fury because of the pressure needs. And I'm also assuming that they're using, that they're highly compressing some type of ball powder blend into that case to get those pressures. And, I have my doubts as to how accurate the cartridge is going to be doing that. But, it's an interesting round. But I do know that the military is trying to evolve with the times right now, which means using a cartridge that can defeat modern battlefield body armor. So it looks like the military could be ditching the intermediate cartridge and going full circle back to the battle rifle again. What that means for the hunter, I don't know. Perhaps I'll be shooting a 338 Fury Ackley improved at 80,000 PSI in a few years. It is interesting to ponder. And our last question is from Sean from Sacramento, California. Sean wrote, I watched your video about the 870, and I'm glad I did before almost buying an Express this week with my tax return. I know that video was made before Remington switched ownership again, but do you think things have gotten better, quality-wise, for the 870 Express under the new ownership? Yeah, I don't know if it's gotten better, but what I can tell you is that the new owners are listening to consumers better than the two previous owners did. I'll give you a little bit of inside industry rumor. And that rumor is that Remington plans to completely phase out the Express model, which has been a stain on the 870 reputation for almost 20 years now. According to these rumors, they plan to replace it with the new 870 Fieldmaster. And from what I hear, the new 870 Fieldmaster has a highly polished action and a highly polished chamber for smooth feeding and extraction and, to fix the jamming issues that the Express models had. The fit and finish is also supposed to be greatly improved. But, the new Fieldmaster is basically what the Express model was before Cerberus took over Remington. And we'll see how it plays out. I wish Remington the best. Well, that wraps up another edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I also want to thank Alan from Virginia, Chris in Wyoming, Peter from Italy, and John from Alaska for the great letters and the kind words. Here's some hunting and fishing memes for February. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you find my content worthy of your subscription, and I hope you do. You can reach me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. As always, thank you for watching and good hunting.